Okay, so here we've got our machine running. I set my preferences. Next, I want to do the audio and MIDI setups. To do that, we're going to go to File. Here in File, in the menu, we go to Audio and MIDI Settings. Great, so here we are. Now you can see right here, we have audio, routing, and MIDI. Now here in audio, we have the core driver. Now this is in my Mac, I have a core driver system right here. In your PC, you got to find what driver you're using and select that. Now here is device, the next option. And here I have built-in selected. This means my internal system within my Mac is going to send this audio output directly through the air or through anything I've hooked up to the output, which could be a headphone set, for example, or speakers. So here I'll just press OK, and I'll play this back from the top. So you can see it plays right back for you. It's right there in the system. So it's really cool. Makes it much easier than having to hook up speakers. Or if you don't have speakers, you can plug into the output of your computer. Let's go back to the dialog box for audio and MIDI settings. Our next available option here is status. So let's see the status of what's running. So for example, I'm going to change my device to the DigiDesign MBox 2 Pro, which is a FireWire device. So I just clicked on it, and now it searched it, it sees it, and now that device is running. So I can switch between devices, and this tells me the status of whether it's running or not. Now below that we have our sample rate, as you can see here. So we can see my currently selected sample rate is 44.1. Other options available to me for this session are 44.1, 48, 88.2, and 96, as you can see right here. Now below that we have latency. Now this slider allows you to adjust the latency of your audio interface in samples. So lower values result in a more immediate playing response, but are heavier on both the CPU and the audio driver. It may result in some sort of audio clicks or pops. And larger values are easier on the PC, but it sort of introduces a little bit more larger latency for my audio driver and for the software itself. So you should therefore sort of set your equipment in a way that you know it's going to work properly. In plain words, just experiment with the setting and see which setting gives you less pops or gives you less latency. But if you have a pretty much high-powered system, it'll work really good. I'm using iMac. Now for Windows, when you're using this, the ASIO driver on your audio and MIDI settings dialog shows an ASIO configuration button instead of a latency slider. So click this button to open the settings dialog of that selected ASIO driver, and that'll help you out. Okay, so next here we've got routing. Now we have input and we have output routing options, as you can see right here. So I'll click on the inputs, and here I can see the inputs that we have into Maschine. We have analog 1 and 2 inputs. So by clicking this button here, the input button, you can define which 2 inputs on your audio interface will be seen by Maschine. So in my case, I've got the MBox 2 Pro. It sees the input 1 and 2 or left and right input for this software Maschine from my MBox 2. So I select what I want to use right here. We're selected already, and these are my inputs into Maschine. I'm sampling audio into Maschine. Next, we have our outputs. So what happens here, you're presented with a list of the 8 stereo outputs from Maschine. In the right column, you can assign them to the outputs of your audio interface. You got it? So I can assign these right here. See that? I can assign them right there, and I'm good to go. Now below that, or next to that, we have MIDI. And this is our MIDI tab. Now here in Midi, we have our inputs, our input ports, you can see here, port 0, status is off, and we have our machine virtual inputs. Now, clicking on the input displays a list of all the available Midi inputs in your system. As you can see here, that's what I have available right now. Now the outputs displays a list of the available Midi outputs in the system. So I can actually activate, see. So I can go to here, I can activate, see on or off right there, I can activate them right there. And the same here as well, on or off. Now offset. Now use the offset to control or to compensate for delay that may occur, sort of like between Midi data transmission, depending on how slow or fast your PCU is, or the other machine you're using, which could be an external Midi master device. And the delayed Midi clock data will cause this external device to respond a little too late, thus sort of making the track sound like it's out of sync. So you need to adjust the offset value to set the amount of latency to be compensated for. That's just in terms of milliseconds. And Maschine will then send the Midi clock events ahead of the time as defined. So this way it'll compensate for any latency and it'll send it in terms of milliseconds. You can see right here. Just grab this here and you compensate for what it's going to be here in milliseconds. And that's how it works.